Tonight, growing calls for tighter social restrictions.
We are still seeing significant outbreaks occurring from birthday parties, graduation parties, family reunions.
As coronavirus cases continue to rise across America.
And big tech testifying before Capitol Hill, answering the question, how big is too big?
Plus,
the Chinese Communist Party has intensified its persecution.
How Christians are being targeted in China.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
COVID-19 and a new troubling milestone in the United States. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm John Jessup. At least 150,000 Americans have now been killed by the virus. That milestone coming as some states report record-setting confirmed cases and hospitalizations. Some good news tonight, though. The number of new cases overall in America appears to be dropping. Heather Sells has our top story.
The COVID death toll has been rising for the past 3 weeks. 21 states are now in the red zone, where the federal government is closely watching rising infection rates.
We are still seeing significant outbreaks occurring from birthday parties, graduation parties, family reunions.
ABC reports a FEMA memo that shows deaths increasing by 30% this last week. Hospitalizations are increasing across 80% of the country, and more than half the states are reversing or pausing their reopenings. But could this be the peak? FEMA also reports that in the last week, new cases are down by 0.6%. The president and his team are promoting hope via the race for a vaccine.
All I want to do is save lives. We're doing very well on vaccines and very well on therapeutics.
This vaccine development we're doing in what I call Trump time. In half to a third of the time, we may have a vaccine by the end of the year.
The government is also cutting deals with companies like Eastman Kodak, the former leader in photography sales, which will now produce ingredients for generic drugs, including hydroxychloroquine. It's another race to shift the U.S. from relying on other countries like China for its pharmaceuticals. In the midst of all this, schools are trying to figure out the fall. On Tuesday, the second largest teachers union in the country encouraged teachers to strike if they don't feel their schools are opening safely.
In most places around the country, people are not ready. They can't fund the safety safeguards that they need, even if they can plan for it. PPE, cleaning, new bus routes, all of these things cost money.
In North Carolina today, the vice president emphasized the importance of school choice and in-person education, visiting a private school that opened its doors this week.
The risk the coronavirus poses to healthy children is very low. And we believe that with the right measures in place, we can safely operate our schools just as you're doing here.
It may be that more parents choose options this year, like private school or homeschooling, if public schools aren't able to effectively educate either online or in person. Heather Sells, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Heather. Well, lawmakers are working against the clock to extend that extra $600 unemployment aid. The aid runs out Friday, but as of tonight, no new relief deal seems likely to pass in time, leading the White House to hint at the possibility of a temporary solution.
We're very far apart, and because of that, the president and we have discussed a short-term extension to UI and the eviction so that we have some period to negotiate before this runs out. And the president
Republicans and Democrats still have sharp divisions on what should be included in the latest relief measure. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell today blaming House Speaker Nancy Pelosi for the failed negotiations. Speaker Pelosi says the GOP plan is, quote, piecemeal.
Well, Jenna, it was Silicon Valley meets Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill today, where lawmakers grilled the CEOs of four of the biggest tech companies.
At the center of the hearing, the question over whether their companies are too big and too powerful. CBN's Eric Phillips joins us now with what the CEOs had to say. Eric?
Yeah, and many of the lawmakers to that question say, yes, Jenna, they are too big and too powerful. We heard from the heads of Amazon, Apple, Google, and Facebook today. There were several themes throughout the day of questioning and testimony. One thing is for sure, though, both sides have their concerns.
Many of the practices used by these companies have harmful economic effects. They discourage entrepreneurship, destroy jobs, hike costs, and degrade quality. Simply put, they have too much power.
I'll just cut to the chase. Big tech's out to get conservatives. That's not a suspicion, that's not a hunch, that's a fact. July 20th, 2020, Google removes the homepages of Breitbart and the Daily Caller. Just last night, we learned Google has censored Breitbart so much traffic has declined 99%.
Other issues included possible breaches of antitrust laws, like when Facebook purchased Instagram to try to stave off competition there. That was brought up today, as was the company's affiliation with China, elimination of hate speech on all the platforms, and general censorship. One lawmaker bringing up Donald Trump being suspended on Twitter earlier this week for supporting usage of the controversial COVID drug hydroxychloroquine. Twitter's CEO was not there, but Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook handled that one.
We do prohibit content that will lead to imminent risk of harm, and stating that there's a proven cure for COVID when there is in fact none might encourage someone to go take something that could have some adverse effects. So we do take that down.
And the CEOs were taken to task for their role in what some believe was Russia's meddling in the 2016 presidential election. And with the 2020 election less than 100 days away now, lawmakers were looking for some reassurances that the companies were on board with fighting against any election interference. John and Jenna.
All right, Eric Phillips, thank you very much. And here with us now is Chris Lewis, President and CEO of the Public Knowledge Group. Chris, thanks for joining us. First question, the big four, Facebook, Amazon, Google, and Apple, are they stifling competition, Chris?
This antitrust subcommittee in the House on a bipartisan basis has been going on with a year-long investigation, which has led to this hearing. And they presented in today's hearing a lot of evidence that there are real harms and things that the public should be concerned about in how the big tech companies are using data to preserve their dominance and also using it to edge out competitors. And so I think there's a lot here for antitrust officials to continue to look at.
Chris, they covered a lot of ground today. Smaller companies and businesses stand to benefit if the tech giants would allow them to advertise and operate on already existing platforms. So, in a way, is big tech a bit of a double-edged sword?
Well, there is a double-edged sword. The large companies have provided a lot of opportunities for small businesses and for consumers to and for technology users to speak as they want to, which wasn't available before the internet. But what's important is that those tools don't allow them to lock themselves in as the dominant providers, and that users have the opportunity to move to other platforms, competitive platforms, if they don't like the options that they have with the dominant players.
So, Chris, what is the end goal here for critics of these Silicon Valley giants? Is breaking up the big four, is it even feasible?
Well, I think that's why this investigation has to continue, and we want the antitrust officials at the Department of Justice and the FTC to continue on with their looks at big tech as well. Some problems may be able to be solved by strict antitrust enforcement, including possible breakups or spinning off of pieces of companies. But there are also problems that were discussed at this hearing, like content moderation policies and privacy, that can't be solved with breakups. If you break up Facebook into 3 companies, for example, and you don't like how they moderate content or you don't like their privacy policies, then you have 3 Facebooks that you have to keep tabs on. So there's more work to be done beyond antitrust, and we hope that the committee's investigation will point towards those options.
Chris, speaking of content moderation, as we just heard in Eric Phillips's report, both liberals and conservatives claim to have been censored by social media platforms like Facebook. What responsibility do these companies have to limit misinformation, and can they be trusted as the arbiters of truth?
Well, they're certainly the judges of truth on their platform, and every platform has their own rules about how they moderate content, and it's important that those rules are transparent and understandable to the users. But it's also, I think, important that because of their dominance, that users have a choice. And so it would be great to see regulations that promote competition, and that if you don't like how Facebook or Twitter moderates their content, that you can go to some smaller platform that serves your needs better. So there's a lot more investigating to do. And again, this is just another step in a year-long process with the House Antitrust Subcommittee.
All right, Chris Lewis with Public Knowledge Group, thank you for your insights. It's always good to have you on.
Thank you.
The Federal Reserve releases its upcoming policy plans, how it might affect you. Details when we come back.
Before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Well, a grim outlook on job growth tonight. The Federal Reserve is signaling it predicts slow economic growth and hiring in the next few months. The Fed ended its latest policy session today with no new changes to the near-zero interest rates that have been in place since mid-March. The Fed did note the economy has rebounded from the historic lows we saw during the heights of lockdowns and layoffs. But in a statement said the pandemic will, quote, weigh heavily on economic activity, employment, and inflation.
Well, author, economist, and 2016 Trump campaign advisor Stephen Moore joins us now. Steve, break it down for us. What does today's Fed announcement mean for the average American?
Well, you know, the rates can't go much lower than zero, right? So they don't have a lot of room in terms of putting additional monetary stimulus into the economy because we've already had so much of it. We have, as you just said, practically close to zero interest rates. You have a situation where the Fed has already put roughly trillions of dollars into the economy. So the solution at this point probably is not with the Fed. As they said today, the most important thing is to get the caseloads down and the deaths down from coronavirus. And then they expect, and by the way, that it looks like we have turned the corner on that. And when we do, flatten and then see that curve start to decline, then I think you'll see a real resumption of that kind of V-shaped recovery we had in June.
Yeah. Steve, in just 2 days, the extra $600 unemployment aid expires. We know you don't support that, but do you think we'll see a relief deal from lawmakers to expand that aid?
Well, that aid has had a lot of harmful effects. I estimate we'd probably have about 1 or 2 million more Americans working today were it not for the fact that unemployed workers are getting, in some cases, twice as much money for not working as working. I mean, that's not just bad economic policy. It's just not fair to the people in this country who are working to have somebody next door, getting more money who's staying at home sitting on the couch. So we need to fix that program. I've told the White House this. I've told members of Congress. I think they understand it. The Democrats don't want to fix it. They want to continue with the $600 a week payment. Just so your audience knows, that's $600 a week plus the normal unemployment benefits. So for many people, that's substantially more than they would get from returning to work. And you guys know this, that small businesses around the country are reporting they can't get their workers back on the job because they do better staying unemployed.
Steve, as far as precious metals go, gold is closing in on $2,000 an ounce. The dollar has sunk to its lowest level in more than 9 years, spurring talk of removing the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. I know you may not agree, but what would it take for that to happen? And if it did happen, if not the dollar, then what?
Well, the dollar will, I guarantee you, there's nothing that's going to replace the dollar as the world currency. Certainly, it's not going to be another country's currency. It's not going to be the euro or the yuan or some kind of petrodollar. That just isn't going to happen. Now, the gold price rising is problematic. There's no question about it. When people buy gold, they're running for safety. They're worried. They're scared about the economic situation. So when you see a rising price of gold, and it's not rising out of control, but it has risen pretty significantly in the last week or so, it shows that people are getting afraid. We don't want people afraid. We want them bold. We want them courageous. We want them out there starting businesses. So I always keep an eye on that gold price. A falling gold price means people are feeling more relaxed and more confident. A rising price means people are getting scared and they're rushing for safety.
Right.
Steve, about 30 seconds left here or so. We do want to talk about 2020. The president trails Joe Biden in many polls. Trump's handling of the economy is, of course, critical to his reelection. Yeah. Steve, as someone who is close to the president and has advised him on many matters related to the economy, is there something he can do to boost the economy in these final months leading up to the election?
Yeah, by the way, the most important thing is it looks like we're going to have this coronavirus under control in the fall, and therefore you're going to see people much happier in their lives and much more confident, and you're going to see a real resurrection of the economy in the fall. So, look, I think Trump is going to win. I think he's got a lot of work to do. You're right. He's behind in the polls. But if he can get the coronavirus under control so people feel some more confidence, and if he can get Americans feeling like the economy is headed in the right direction, because it's going to take many, many, many months to get out of this hole, I still think that he is going to get reelected.
Well, all right, Steve Moore, thank you very much. It's always good to see you. Have a great evening.
Good, and congratulations on your engagement.
Oh, thank you. 10 days.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Coming up, China's crackdown on Christians and how the Communist Party is using the coronavirus to target believers and other religious minorities.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Welcome back. The United States is getting ready to remove American troops out of Germany. The Pentagon announcing today a withdrawal of around 12,000 service members stationed there. About 6,400 of those are set to return to U.S. soil. Another 5,400 will be restationed to other locations around Europe. President Trump has long indicated his intent to withdraw troops from Germany, complaining NATO allies aren't spending enough on defense. 25,000 U.S. troops will remain, though, in the country.
Meanwhile, international outrage is growing against China's government. Already in hot water for its mishandling of the COVID-19 crisis, now it's launching a major crackdown against religious groups.
And that includes targeting Christians and claims of genocide against ethnic Muslims. Gary Lane reports.
Christians in China say the latest government crackdown against the church is worse than Chairman Mao's attacks during the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s. But why now? China aide President Bob Fu says this wave of persecution actually began in 2015. But now the Chinese Communist Party has a new excuse for targeting Christians.
Now, under this pretext of COVID-19 coronavirus, the Chinese Communist Party has intensified its persecution by banning all the church activities, even those services or worship or prayer meetings in believers' own homes with their own family members.
The government is also using this as an excuse to arrest Christians who call for online prayer meetings. CBN has reported on the removal of crosses from church buildings, and this month it picked up steam. On July 7th, more than 100 Public Security Bureau police and others were sent to oversee the demolition of crosses at Aodi Christian Church and Yangchang Christian Church in China's Zhejiang province. Security guards reportedly beat Christians who tried to stop the cross removals. Church members saying those injured included a man in his 80s, violently pushed to the ground. And on July 5th, police interrupted services at Guilin in Guang Church, arresting church elders. Hours later, church members sang hymns outside the 7-star Public Security Bureau station as they awaited the release of their leaders. Fu says it's all a part of a new campaign of sinicization, which means Christians are only considered to be good citizens if they adhere to communist ideology.
And ironically, Xi Jinping's portrait was even put on the church pulpit along with Chairman Mao. And the first line item of worship, by the government-sanctioned church before COVID-19 was to sing a Communist Party's national anthem.
And examples go beyond churches. In Fuzhou City, a Catholic family was forced out of their government-subsidized housing after they refused to remove religious icons from their home. And China's Religious Affairs Bureau has banned religious funeral ceremonies and preaching in funeral places. Meanwhile, Christians aren't the only ones suffering. Ethnic Uyghurs from East Turkestan, a region the communist government calls Xinjiang province, are under attack.
China is home to one of the worst human rights crises of our time. It is truly the stain of the century.
The U.S. Council on International Religious Freedom goes further, calling it genocide. For years, the Chinese government has forced Uyghur women to undergo abortions. Now, a new development. The president of East Turkestan's government in exile told me on the Global Lane that China is also conducting forced sterilization.
Hundreds of thousands of Uyghur and other Turkic women have been forcibly sterilized by the Chinese government. China has a long-standing policy of forcibly aborting Uyghur and other Turkic babies. In fact, according to the Chinese government, between 1979 and 2009, they prevented 3.7 million illegal births in East Turkestan.
Also, Hudayar and the U.S. Defense Department say as many as 3 million Uyghurs are being forcibly detained in re-education and forced labor camps.
Beijing described Xinjiang's internment camps as vocational training camps. New reports of forced abortions and sterilizations add to a body of evidence that contradicts that.
The U.S. State Department is alerting corporate CEOs and others about China's use of Uyghur slave labor so they won't become involved. The East Turkestan government in exile is taking its case to the International Criminal Court. But whether it is the persecution of Uyghurs or Christians, China's communist government is likely to ignore international outrage, describing it as foreign interference in Chinese internal affairs. Gary Lane, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Gary. Well, still ahead. Sit back, relax, and enjoy an out-of-this-world flight, the future of space tourism, when Faith Nation returns.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man coming.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Finally tonight, you've probably heard about talks of space tourism, but what exactly could that look like?
Now, one company is offering a first look for anyone brave enough to sign up and take flight. Virgin Atlantic is out with this sneak peek inside its suborbital plane, the VSS Unity. The passenger cabin comes complete with specially made seats with window views of Earth in the distance. Once at peak altitude, travelers can unbuckle and float around the cabin in zero gravity. No date for the first commercial flight just yet, but ticket prices are expected to go for more than, get this, $250,000 a pop. Jenna, notwithstanding that hefty price tag, might be a great place for a honeymoon. What do you think?
You know, I think we'll
Maybe.
Maybe. We'll think about it. Have a great night.
See you tomorrow.